and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is Danny, and for the week of June 24th through the 30th, the Sun will be in Gate 52 and the Earth in Gate 58.
These are good ones. They kick off the logical process, and we're totally going to unravel that. We've talked a lot about these gates so far in our whole series through the whole, around the wheel and all. So this will be good. We'll pattern it down.
Absolutely fun to dive into it. So thank you to everyone who is watching and liking and subscribing. It really helps us out. So thanks for being here, and let's get into it. Here we can see on the mandala body graph view on the wheel, as we call it, we have the Earth in Gate 58, which is Vitality, and it's a root center gate. And we have the Sun in Gate 52, which is Stillness, and it's also a root center gate.
It's a really interesting time of year to have this stillness for reassessment show up as a driving force. I'll be really interested to see on these 6.5 days how much people do actually slow down. We'll see it in world events mostly. I mean, that's where it should show up.
Yeah, that's where it can be really easy to see when the polarity is flipped with the Sun in 58 and the Earth in 52. That's when it's Christmas.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's right. It is Christmas. That is true. That is true.
And the stillness makes sense. The Earth in 52 during Christmas, that makes sense. So it's kind of interesting now with the Sun in 52.
Yep. No, I can't wait to dive in. I got lots of things to say about 52.
Here we have the Sun in Gate 52, which is keeping still, or the mountain and the gate of stillness. This is temporary and self-imposed inaction for the benefit of assessment. Gate 52 is a root center gate, part of collective circuitry. So sharing is the keynote, and it's part of the understanding circuit specifically. Gate 52 links up with Gate 9, which is the gate of focus, and the 52-9 make up the channel of concentration. Gate 52 is energy under pressure, focused on assessment. The raw power to concentrate, finding something it deeply identifies with, something worthwhile to channel this energy toward, and the tension between the root center's pressure to keep moving forward and Gate 52's power to help sit still and concentrate.
It's just wicked intense, starting with temporary and self-imposed inaction for the benefit of assessment. When we think of the root center, we think of movement. So as soon as you say stillness, and we think of stress as well. You just stress generally. People with a defined root will always handle the stress field of the planet better, in the world and their surrounding better than those of us with an open root. So you think of all this adrenaline, but stillness, the adrenalized power to temporary and self by yourself impose this inaction. The rest of the time we're walking around the wheel, everything's in a great movement. This is the one uniquest time of actual stillness. So profound that in the juxtaposition cross, it can be so silent and so still that it can spark something so brand new. It's incredible, or at least the investigation into as a first line of it. This stillness and this ability to self-impose is the adrenaline, because it's holding back something. It's a lot of work. It's holding back the energy of mankind's form that is about movement. Doesn't matter your type, doing the thing, looking at the thing, right? We're busy being alive, wriggling around like little things along with our consciousness. And then suddenly the ability to adrenalize so strongly that you freeze, stop, allow yourself to literally reassess in stillness. That stillness does not necessarily have to be silent, like reassessment during silence, but mostly it is. And it's looking to get to Gate 9 that wants to concentrate, and this becomes a deep format channel, finding something it deeply identifies with. Let's talk about Gate 16. Gate 16 is enthusiastic because it finally identifies with the skill, right? That's great. That's enthusiasm. That's fun. And it can go deep, but whatever depth it gets, it's sanctioned by this Gate 52, which is the definition of deeply identifies with. These format gates, they create a keynote and they affect and they are imbued throughout the rest of its circuitry. We did that last week. So they format the rest of that circuitry, this logical understanding circuitry. And when you put these two gates together with 9 and 52, the capacity to now have sustaining energy to that with the adrenalized stillness. That stillness is like, picture a sharpshooter that it has to wait for 2 days because it get to your place, zip it, right? No sudden movements and wait. And, you got a 2-hour window tomorrow at noon. For those 2 hours, that's self-imposed stillness. That's an adrenalized activity. And it's concentrated on all the details. And in the human form, it just wants to take the largest of issues in the world as it relates to us moving forward and tame all those details into a package that it couldn't have done had it not sat still for it. Consciousness through stillness.
That's a really great description. I always think of 52 as like a hawk or an eagle on a lake that's just gliding, and it looks like it's almost doing nothing, like it's just hanging out there, but it still takes that effort and energy just to maintain and just to observe and be that lookout, which is what
And focus. Because 52 isn't the focus of 9, but it wants to be. It's part of a format energy that's going to condition the whole rest of the circuitry to want that and to be excited about that and to finally get it and then deeply identify and format the rest of the circuitry with this keynote of identification.
Here we have the Earth in gate 58, which is the joyous and the gate of vitality. Gate 58 says that stimulation is the key to joy. Gate 58 is a root center gate, part of collective circuitry, so you can think sharing as your keynote, and it's part of the understanding circuit specifically. Gate 58 links up with gate 18, which is the gate of correction, and the 58-18 make up the channel of judgment. Gate 58 is the ability to sense what is weak or unhealthy, and having the joyful, compassionate audacity to challenge a pattern or authority behind it. This is the driving desire to contribute value, focusing vitality and joy for life on correcting anything preventing society from achieving and maintaining well-being and health. It's also testing the viability of patterns, formulas, rhythms, and directions that are moving humanity into the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is testing these patterns and its viability all day long. Stimulation. I seem to say this about all of the oppositions around the wheel. Every time I come to it and I look at it, these are like the old Reese's commercial, 2 great tastes that go great together. And this fits the bill. The stimulation, this being the key to joy, the stimulation is not an awareness. It's coming out of the root center. Yet it knows it's going to come to an awareness. All the circuitry understands I'm going to pass through awareness sooner or later, although it itself is not the awareness and doesn't know what it will be aware of. It simply stimulates. So picture it like tickling the thing. You're in a science experiment and you've got to simply tickle the thing so that it wakes up and you get your thing going. It's some bio experiment. This is so joyful, it just wakes up and starts like vibrating with its adrenal energy to get the party started. And the party's going to be something that everyone can understand. That's the thing. It's not into the abstract abyss. The joy is to find the thing that you ultimately will be so identified with that it can repeat, that it is logical and understandable, that it's loaded with enough details that got tamed into a picture. And the taming of it is the vitality. These things are together. And the vitality says, now I have joy. And this side of the body graph, this is joy that is sheerly the expression of an enthusiastic excitement about having your own consciousness, have A, figured it out, and B, make it move into motion somehow or other. And that is joy. And then, as sharing is the keynote for everything here, and by the way, this would be, I think, the cross of service, right? All of the gates are logical collective in the cross of service. If I'm not, yeah, they all are. 17, 18, 58, and 52. That's all logical collective. This whole thing wants to share. And the sharing becomes part of the vitality. In other words, if you can't share it, part of that vitality is stripped away. So it's this congruent thing that takes 2 parts to click into itself. And it's a vibrating, buzzing capacity to be willing to surrender into joy of the moment because it's so good and juicy. I'm sorry, when you just figure something, when your lawnmower doesn't work and you finally figure it out and you gap that thing just right and you filed it and your hands are all dirty and you pull the cord and it finally works and you did it, that is joy. That's dude joy. and girls have the same thing, right? We all do. It's sheer joy, and my bicycle and whatever it was, that as soon as you make it work, it's always logical. It always had a thing. And trust me, I'm going to tell at least 2 or 3 people that I fixed the lawnmower and I'll finish that joy circuit. But the joy is unfathomably not emotional. It is survival. It is witnessed as part of how we survive. When there is no joy, there is no survival. We just everything atrophies. You can have depression and lots of survival. You can have all kinds of emotional highs and lows with plenty of survival. If you remove the joy, the system will atrophy, and we know that. Rats in a cage, you leave the baby alone for the first week. Sorry, no mother to share her joy of that creation, even though it's emotional on the other side. But here, this is I'd like to hear what God has to say about joy framed this way. I would like his explanation of it, because joy is such a big word. Joy to the world and all the boys and girls. Remember that song
One,
from the '60s? Something like that. It was a peace and love song from the '60s. Everybody sang it. I remember it growing
yeah,
up.
I
Yep.
remember that one.
And Jeremiah was a bullfrog, I think was the name of the song.
Uh-huh.
And that joy was everybody sharing and singing at the same time, the pattern of the song that felt so good pouring out of your lungs together, shared, and they all were moving in a direction. The joy to the world. That's a gate to direction if ever I heard one. So
It's funny too, because it also, when you think of the opposite polarity of This Is Christmas, so joy to the world.
good, right, right.
I love the holiday links with human design. The other thing I was going to say is I love the link between joy and vitality. That those are like two sides of the
Right.
same coin of gate 58. That because joy, it's this beautiful thing, and all the things you said were very, very beautiful. And you could understand the happiness of joy in that, but really linking it in with vitality and wellness. And again, that
Vitality
survival
speaks.
aspect. Yeah.
It does. It speaks to the spleen's job to keep us vital. And it feels good to be vital. I love that this goes up the spleen side, because we don't want the emotional solar plex to get all the kudos of all the juiciness. This is juicy, in its moment while it's happening. I like it. And it's got 6 lines, all kinds of flavors of it. It's got everything from, I forgot the word, it's sort of like debauchery, because your joy knows no bounds.
Oh, that's two. That's 58.2.
Degeneracy or something. It's
Perversion.
perversion. Yeah, there you go. And it's got all the way up to its fifth and sixth line, which will universalize like there is no tomorrow, and put it out there. It's got its love is light and life. I forgot if it's light or life, but love is life essentially. And the love is the joy of being in the sharing of the thing that you finally basically wrangled into something that can be identified with. And that just says that the life, first line, love is it light or life? I forget.
Love of life.
Love of life.
Which
Yeah.
makes sense because again, 58 goes into the 18, which is the spleen and health and life.
Help, life, love of life. And you know what? Love of life. It says that the love of life is a shared process that is vitality, that is identifiable, that is shareable in a practical way, that others can understand. You don't have to intuit this. You can simply understand it. Like the emotions, you might have to intuit some of that. How are you feeling, baby? And you're open, emotional, and they're defined. And, you're getting riding on that wave. There's a lot of nuance there. There's not as much nuance here. It's on or off ish. I'm sure there's some nuance, but
It's a lot simpler. Like,
it's simpler,
yeah.
childlike. It's childlike, in my opinion. I mean, at its core. So there it is, an adrenalized gate that's constantly stimulating the sitting still process of figuring it out, of taming all the details and focused and concentration. We need that. All root action, perfect start to the logical collective circuitry. If you're starting down here, that is. Yeah.
Here we have our incarnation crosses for the week. First up, we have the right angle cross of service, which adds the 17 and 18 to the 52 and 58 we've been talking about. And these are logical people who have the responsibility and fuel to ensure that the pattern moving us toward the future is correct or corrected. Then we'll move into the juxtaposition cross of stillness, which adds the 21 and the 48 to the 52 and 58. And these are people quietly, joyously building networks, creating opportunities to influence others with their potential depth and solutions. And finally, we'll move into the left angle cross of demands, which also adds the 21 and 48. And these are people who demand that solutions be found, corrections be made, and agreements enforced in order to protect society.
It's a really cool movement right here, moving through the wheel. We're still in the order of civilization, obviously. We're moving through those gates. I'm sure we'll do more Godheads on that. And we've left the vessel sore in the second half of that. This says, basically, we obtained the details of creating the civilization, which will ultimately feed everything, make everything work into the future. And we're going to go through a process that both assesses it, the juxtaposition, and then demands it, the left angle, and is able to universalize that demand, put it out into the world. In other words, it can see across the circuitry that it needs to be done. In the right angle of service, just busy, self-absorbed, busy, right angle, wanting to be of service. So follow your strategy and authority, and you'll find where this energy goes. By the way, in the world, the cross of service is deeply sought after. And people don't even realize it. If you're a third line 3-5 service, you're wondering, why is everyone always trying to get you to serve stuff? If you're a 2-4, let's say, or second line, you're getting called into it, and you're hoping it's the right thing. Can't tell, right? And if you're a first line, you're investigating all of that. That's all self-absorbed action. So it says humanity naturally, in its natural self-absorbed state, has service in the world. The higher principle we always exalt is here in this cross as a potential. I mean, don't get me wrong, a not self cross of service can, not pretty. Everything's judgmental, everything, potentially. But an awake service is, their genome is designed to throw them into service. So 1/64th of the planet, a little bit less, that's a lot of people. 9 billion divided by 64 is a big number, guaranteeing some form of service. It's less than that, by the way. So it'd probably be 82, 1 out of 88, we'll say. It's a lot of people, and they're peppered everywhere, and they're bringing service into the world. And that service cannot be squandered. They don't necessarily know where it all goes, but the stillness assesses it. And then the demands say, you know what? Those clowns may not have known where it was, those self-absorbed right angle folks. That's all good. We do. We have demands. We're not going to mess it up, and 21, you know what 21 does, and we're about to get into what happens as 21 and 48 in the next piece of the wheel. It becomes this cross that it moves into the cross of tension, because we just did all this stuff and now it's this way. So it gets a little tense for people who try and buck that system. We get into the next turn on the wheel and the next transit. In the quarter of civilization, each quarter, because it goes sort of one way, builds upon the one before it. So everything builds on initiation, but our duality getting together and the mutation build on initiation and civilization. So it's each one foundationalizes the next one, the next two at least. And so it's a foundation to have moving into our duality, man, woman thing, and then the mutation, the coming to the new, and rebirthing again in initiation after the first of the year. So in service, the service is to create the thing, share that, make it logical, make sure everything works before we start making babies and then figuring out what all that means.
So here we have our hexagrams for the week. We have the sun in gate 52, which is stillness. And the trigrams are mountain over mountain. In my I Ching book, it's stilling, like the act of stilling, more like a present tense action kind of verb. And the image reads, joined mountains, stilling. A noble one reflects and does not come forth from his situation. Whatever upheavals take place around it, the mountain is still. The noble one in his environment is like two mountains joined together, present to one another and not reacting. He is still inwardly and reflects. He is still outwardly staying within his situation, not seeking to act or escape from it. Outer and inner stillness reinforce one another.
That's so cool. Still with each other. The double mountain. They're doubling down. We're making, not gonna take any chances. This thing is still self-imposed, self-imposed mountain time, basically. The noble one knows he does not just come forth. I like that in the very first statement.
Mhm.
He is busy assessing. I love this image, by the way. It seems to fit mountain over mountain.
And then we have the Earth in gate 58, which is vitality, or in my I Ching book, it reads as opening. And the trigrams are lake over lake. The image reads, lakes join together, opening. A noble one joins with friends to speak and practice together. Two joined lakes, open to one another, flow together freely and enrich one another. The same is true of friends who join together to discuss and share their understanding. The exchange of ideas and pooling of insights makes everyone richer.
Dude, that's insane. So basically, both of these descriptions spoke to two people, essentially, getting together, sharing, right? And bringing something that was sensible. And each one of them sort of also then spoke to what happens in the upcoming quarter of duality. It's almost as if this is in service to the upcoming quarter of duality. It's as if it's in service to this because it speaks to it. That all that language was like this one gets with that one gets with this. That is the meaning of duality. Splenic business, by the way. All the gates of the spleen are there. All the gates of the throat are here.
So quarter of initiation, it's mind, it's inspiration. Then we go into quarter of civilization, which we're in right now. And civilization is about bringing things into form, and it lights up all the throat gates. Then we'll go into the quarter of duality, which is about relationships and interacting with people. And it's interesting that all the splenic gates are lit up when we're interacting and meeting with new people. We're meeting with new
Right.
people. Your immune system has to be like on and alert and ready and safety and ongoing survival as we're meeting up with new people. That
Right.
just was kind of neat how that hit in. And then finally, we go into the quarter of mutation, which is about shifting and transitioning and evolving and mutating into the next thing before it goes back into initiation.
Exactly. In this service of both of these, let's assess for the sake of our future getting together. Let's make sure the civilization and the form is complete as we prepare to get together. No different than Mama Bird making sure her nest is just right before she lays eggs. I mean, what's the difference? In its plainest sense. So yeah, I like how these were set up.
Mm-hmm. And it's neat too because the trigram. So mountain is about still. It's about going off on your own and kind of taking things in and assessing. And then lake as a trigram, it's about joyousness. It's about abundance. So it makes sense that like gate 58 is the joyous, and it's about vitality and abundance and ongoing survival. So that's kind of neat.
And I would call all of those gates on the off of the root center abundant, but they don't all act out the sense of abundance. But 58 does, or can. The potential is heavily there in 58 to feel a great deal of abundance. I got people to share with, and the thing is on the move because it's working, and the system is, and they see it too. And so now we're doing it together. That's joy. I mean, to me, that's joy, and it seems to lead to the setup of duality, like I said.
So, tying it all together, what can we tell our audience to be aware of, to play around with, and kind of notice this week with the sun in gate 52 and the earth in gate 58?
So 52 is the still part of it. We'll read it totally different in Christmas time. We really will. These two things will read quite differently. Understand there's going to be a lot of self-imposed assessment. This is a time of suddenly, I'm assessing this. I'm assessing this. Wait a minute. Don't be surprised when you think a lot before you speak at this point during this week. The world could use a lot of that. And I bet we'll see a lot of that in world news, just generally speaking. And then 58, this week is a week to see what's worth sharing in the world. You've already sat still a whole chunk of time throughout your whole life. You already have things worth sharing. Dig them up, dust them off, and put them out into the world. You've already loved. There's something you love that you literally just left aside. Bring it out, whatever that is. That's what I would suggest for people because they're going to start to notice that they want that vitality. And by the way, that vitality is not only shared, but it's shared in communion. So they're not going to want strife. In fact, strife is the opposite of this joy and this vitality. So any kind of strife and difficulty in the world is going to want to try to give way and yield. You're going to want that stuff to yield to the energy of this particular week. That's what I would say. So look at it that way too.
I always like to think of with the sun and the earth, it's like the earth is what grounds us. So being grounded in gate 58, to me, that would be being grounded in that which brings you joy and vitality, right? Like that which makes you more vital, more healthy in life, and that which is going to bring more joy to share with the world. And what are those things that do get you excited and that do make you happy and enthusiastic and to care for yourself in those really positive and healthy ways? And then once you're grounded in that, shining the sun of gate 52, which is about stillness and assessment. So it's kind of interesting. I feel there's a little bit of those things that bring you joy in your own world and don't mind kind of like being off on your own doing those things and kind of observing and taking in the world and assessing and pausing before you act, because that's a good time to kind of take it all in and pause before you act, take an assessment before you dive into something.
Yeah, and you can even pause along the way. You can start in on the joy part. It is adrenalized energy. It wants to make that movement. So allow it. The only caution I would give is 58 is if you look at the channel of judgment, which can appear judgmental to others, 58:18, 58 can be likened to the match that strikes up the fire of this channel that does wish to challenge. It wants to challenge. It's part of a cross that's got the other challenging gate in gate 17 generally. So it's very akin to all of this stuff. So just be careful that you don't find a not self joy in challenging and bursting the bubble of every last little thing. That would be something that could potentially come from this. So watch it. If you suddenly start seeing that, be like, oh, that's not quite me, is it?
It's a really good piece of advice because that it's really easy to fall into that pokey kind of judgment where that's not the role of it. It's like it's
Not the
about
role of it,
yeah,
right?
both like with 58, it's looking for vitality and what can share that vitality and joy into the world. And
And
even
18 is
18,
like looking at what's been spoiled, making sure it's not still spoiled, making sure that joy can stay.
exactly. And like, what is that outcome, right? It's not about like bursting someone else's bubble of like, but where you can bring that joy and that vitality into the world. And even with 18, it's where can you see that something's been spoiled in order to bring more joy into the world. So having that intention underneath it.
In a sense, it's the spleen's most sophisticated stream of awareness. And I'm not counting 50 because 50 is obviously sophisticated in its own way, hugely. But this one's sophisticated because on the outside, as it goes up that outside vein of that stream of awareness, judgment is about your taste, your particular splenic taste of the thing. An instinct will tell you to duck and points at something important. The intuition of 57 and 28 are, well, they're unique and individual, so they're only that in beings at the time. But this is shared. And it is a sophistication because we have to navigate the others and find that our taste with them is not too judgmental, and that it's not too like self-centered or what have you. So it's sophisticated taste, your taste of how that is, how this is through the spleen, which is a survival awareness in the now, moment by moment about that which is healthy for you and safe at the time. And this is shared safety. So here's where the spleen can share its spleenness to people who are open spleen. Is that, what I'm reading? It's a sophisticated set of activities going on in this channel in this stream from 58 up to 16, and 15 is definitely 58 is the match. It's the match to it's like dynamite match. Don't let this be a time that your joy becomes your opinion that you need to force upon the other. I mean, think of all the ways you could consider that. And You don't have to be right. The sharing and the joy are not contingent on you actually being right. They're contingent upon you sharing and experiencing that along the way. You don't have to worry that gate 9 and gate 18 aren't around to finish these channels. These two are format and powerful root energy. Be aware that you will love joy this week, and you'll be able to sit still and watch it. All too often we miss it because it goes by in the busy. This is your chance to step out of the busy and witness the actual joy. You have it. It's there.
Perfect. Beautiful. Thank you, Danny. Thank you to everyone who is watching and liking and subscribing and commenting. It really, really helps us. So thanks for being part of it with us, and we'll catch you next week for another transit.
Love you guys. Come back. See you soon.
Bye.
Don't